I woke up Tuesday morning thinking it was just another ordinary day. I was wrong. My name is Claire Donovan. I'm 48 years old, a widow, and for the last 6 years I've been running a small bookstore in Portland, Oregon, Morrison and Daughter Books. It's named after my late husband Thomas and our daughter Paige. Thomas died of a sudden heart attack when Paige was 16, and I've spent every day since trying to make up for his absence, trying to keep her happy, trying to say yes to everything because I told myself that's what love looked like. Private college, the new car, the apartment I helped pay for even after she graduated, the credit cards, the joint bank account for emergencies. I justified every dollar because she'd lost her father young, and I truly believed that giving her everything would somehow heal us both. That Tuesday, I was supposed to pay Phil Ramsey, the contractor who'd been waiting 3 months to fix the rotting back wall of my store. $18,000. It had taken me a year of skipped meals and no vacations to save it, but I'd done it. I was finally going to repair the damage, update the wiring, make the store safe again. When I logged into the bank account to transfer the money, the screen showed $247. 18. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I saw the transaction history. Transfer to Paige M. Donovan, $18,000. ER0. A4-23-2025, 2:17 a.m., 2 in the morning, 5 days ago. I called her phone. Straight to voicemail, called again, nothing. So I opened Instagram, something I barely ever used, and there she was, my 22-year-old daughter, grinning in turquoise water with 3 college friends in Tulum, Mexico, white sand beaches, infinity pools, drinks with little umbrellas. The caption read, "Finally living." No regrets, just vibes. She'd spent 4 days posting photos of resort living, while I had no idea my life savings were gone. I sat in the back office of the store, surrounded by my dead husband's annotated books, and I realized something. I'd been enabling her for 6 years, teaching her that she could take whatever she wanted and I'd clean it up. That love meant never letting her face consequences. So I made a decision. I didn't call her, didn't send angry texts. Instead, I removed her as an authorized user on all my accounts, canceled her credit card, and then I did something I never imagined I'd do. I called a real estate agent and put Morrison and Daughter Books up for sale. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, but because I finally understood that I couldn't keep living in a shrine to the past, sacrificing everything for a daughter who'd learned to see me as an ATM instead of a person. 5 days went by. 5 days of silence while she partied in Mexico, oblivious. Then, on Sunday evening, my phone rang. Her voice was panicked, desperate. Mom, I'm at the airport in Cancun and they won't let me board. My card isn't working, I don't have enough cash, and my friends already left." "Stop," I said. My voice was so calm it scared me. "Mom, please, I know I messed up, but I'll pay you back. You took $18,000 from me, Paige. Money I saved for a year. You didn't ask. You didn't even tell me you were leaving." Silence on her end. Then, "I thought you wouldn't miss it right away. You thought I wouldn't miss $18,000? Mom, please, I'm scared. I don't know what to do." I closed my eyes. In the background, I could hear airport announcements in Spanish, the shuffle of desperate travelers. I thought about the little girl who used to sit in the bookstore corner reading Anne of Green Gables. I thought about Thomas, who'd wanted so badly to teach her responsibility but died before he could. "I put the store up for sale," I said quietly. "What?" "Morrison and Daughter. I'm selling it. I'm moving. Maybe to the coast, maybe somewhere I've never been." "You can't! Mom, that's Dad's store, that's our store." "It was our store until you decided it was your personal bank account. I'll come home, I'll fix this." "How, Paige? You're 22 years old, and you've never held a job for more than 4 months. You spent $18,000 in less than a week." Her breath hitched. "So what? You're just leaving me here?" I looked around the small apartment above the store where I'd been frozen in grief for 6 years. At the half-packed boxes I'd already started filling. "I'm not leaving you," I said. "I'm letting you figure out what you're going to do next, without me cleaning it up." "Mom, there's a Western Union on Avenida Tulum. I'll send you $300. Enough for a ticket home and a night in a hostel if you need it. After that, you're on your own." $300? Mom, that's not even... It's more than you've earned." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something else. Something that felt like the beginning of freedom. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that Paige wouldn't come home right away. That she'd spend 3 weeks working under the table at a hostel bar in Cancun, sleeping in a cramped shared room, saving every peso for a flight. That she'd call me twice more and I wouldn't answer. That my sister would accuse me of cruelty. That I'd have to choose every single day between rescuing my daughter and letting her finally learn to save herself. And I didn't know that when Paige finally did come home, thin, sunburned, and carrying $847 in crumpled bills she'd earned scrubbing toilets, we'd sit across from each other in that bookstore for 4 hours, and she'd ask me the question I'd been avoiding for 6 years. Why did you let me become this? This is the story of what happened after I stopped carrying my daughter's weight. Of what broke between us, what rebuilt, and what it cost us both to learn that forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone fall. Because the truth is, I didn't abandon my daughter in Mexico that day. I finally let her grow up, and it nearly destroyed us both before it saved us. The morning light came through the front windows of Morrison and Daughter books the way it always did. Slanted, golden, catching dust motes that danced above the stacks like something out of a children's story. I stood behind the counter with my second cup of coffee, watching the street wake up. Portland in late April meant rain earlier in the week, but today the sky was clear. The kind of blue that made you believe in new beginnings even when you knew better. I'd opened the store at 7:30, same as every Tuesday for the past 6 years. The routine was muscle memory now. Unlock the door, flip the sign, start the coffee maker in the back office, check the email orders, dust the front displays. Thomas used to say routines were how you survived grief. One foot in front of the other, Claire Bear. He'd tell me when things got hard. Just keep moving. So I moved. The store wasn't much to look at from the outside. A narrow brick building wedged between a vintage clothing shop and a Vietnamese bakery on S.E. Morrison Street. Inside, it was organized chaos. Floor-to-ceiling shelves crammed with used books, a children's corner with a faded rug and beanbags, a small cafe area with 4 mismatched tables where regulars came for the pour-over coffee and the silence. Thomas had built most of the shelves himself, back when Paige was in elementary school and we still thought we had time. I was shelving a box of new arrivals, estate sale finds mostly, when my phone buzzed. A text from Phil Ramsey, the contractor. Morning, Claire. Still good for 10 a.m.? Ready to get started on that back wall. I smiled. Phil was one of those rare men who did what he said he'd do, when he said he'd do it. For 3 months, I'd been saving every spare dollar to fix the structural damage behind the store. Water rot from a leaky roof, electrical wiring that hadn't been updated since the 80s. $18,000. It had taken me a year of skipped lunches and no vacations, but I'd done it. See you then, I typed back. At 9:45, I locked the register and headed to the back office to transfer the money. The office was barely bigger than a closet. A desk, a filing cabinet, Thomas's old leather chair that still smelled faintly of his cologne. His books were everywhere. Steinbeck, Flannery O'Connor, Cormac McCarthy, all annotated in his careful handwriting. Sometimes I'd open one at random just to see his notes in the margins. This is the part where he chooses he'd written in East of Eden. Timshall. Thou mayest. I logged into the bank account on my laptop and clicked to the savings. The number on the screen didn't make sense at first. Balance, $247.18. I stared at it. Refreshed the page, checked the URL to make sure I wasn't on some phishing site. But no, this was our bank, our account. The joint account I'd set up with Paige 3 years ago when she started college, just in case she ever had an emergency. My chest tightened. I clicked on the transaction history and there it was 5 days ago. Transfer to Paige M. Donovan, $18,000. Soriro 04/23/2025, 2:17 a.m. 2 in the morning. I sat back in Thomas's chair and the room tilted slightly. My coffee had gone cold in my hand. Outside, I could hear the bell above the shop door. Someone coming in. But I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe right. $18,000. Gone. I called Paige. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Same thing. My hands were shaking now, and I set the coffee cup down before I spilled it. I opened Instagram, something I rarely did. I'd only made an account to keep track of Paige after Thomas died, and searched for her profile. The first photo made my stomach drop. Paige, tanned and grinning, standing in turquoise water with 3 other girls. White sand, palm trees, the caption, finally living. Tulum, you're a dream. Posted 4 days ago. I scrolled. More photos, a resort pool, drinks with little umbrellas, the 4 of them in matching swimsuits. No regrets, just vibes. Best friends, best life. Worth every penny. I closed the app and set the phone down very carefully on the desk. For a long time, I just sat there. I could hear Mrs. Kowalski in the front of the store, the regular who came every Tuesday to browse the mystery section. I could hear the coffee maker gurgling. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, a dull thud that sounded like a door closing. $18,000. She'd taken $18,000 from me without asking, without even telling me she was leaving the country. I thought about calling her again, thought about texting, thought about doing what I always did, fixing it, smoothing it over, making excuses. She's young. She's still grieving. She didn't think it through. But something stopped me. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and logged into the bank's customer service portal. Removed Paige as an authorized user on all accounts. It took 4 clicks. Then I called the credit card company and canceled the Visa I'd given her 2 years ago for emergencies. "May I ask the reason for cancellation?" the representative asked. "Fraud," I said. My voice sounded strange. Calm. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mrs. Donovan. We'll process this immediately." When Phil knocked on the front door at 10, I met him with my coat already on. "Claire?" He frowned, reading my face. "Everything okay?" "I need to reschedule," I said. "I'm sorry, Phil. Something came up with the payment. Give me a few weeks." "No problem. You know I'm not going anywhere." He hesitated. "You sure you're all right?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. After he left, I stood in the middle of the empty store and looked around. Really looked. At the shelves Thomas had built. At the corner where Paige used to do her homework. At the life I'd been preserving like a museum exhibit. Afraid that if I changed anything, I'd lose them both all over again. My phone rang. Margaret, my older sister. "Hey, have you heard from Paige?" she asked. "She posted something about Mexico, and I just wanted to make sure you knew." "I know," I said. "Oh, good." I was worried for a second. "Spring break trip?" "Something like that." "Well, good for her. She deserves some fun after everything. Margaret, I have to go." I hung up before she could respond. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in months. I walked the 6 blocks to St. Michael's Cathedral and slipped into a pew near the back. The church was nearly empty, just an elderly man praying the rosary near the altar and a young mother with a sleeping baby. I didn't kneel, didn't pray exactly, just sat in the silence and let the weight of it press down on me. Thomas used to bring Paige here when she was little. I'd stayed home most Sundays. Faith had never come easy to me, but he'd insisted it was important. Not for the rules, he'd say, for the questions, for learning that some things are bigger than us. I wondered what he'd think of me now, of what Paige had done, of what I was about to do. When I got back to the store, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Diane Hoffner, real estate agent. We'd met at a Chamber of Commerce event last year, exchanged cards. I called before I could change my mind. "Claire Donovan," Diane said warmly. "What a nice surprise. What can I do for you?" "I want to sell the bookstore," I said. There was a pause. "Morrison and daughter? Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "Okay," she said slowly. "Can I ask what's prompting this?" I looked around the store, at everything I'd been holding on to, everything that had been holding me back. "I need a change," I said. "And I need it now." We made an appointment for Thursday. After I hung up, I sat at the counter and stared at my phone, waiting for Paige to call. Waiting for her to notice that her card wasn't working, that something was wrong. But she didn't call that day, or the next, or the day after that. And with each day of silence, something inside me shifted, hardened. I'd spent 6 years trying to keep her happy, trying to fill the hole Thomas left. I'd given her everything, money, time, excuses, unconditional love, and she'd taken it all without question. She'd taken it because I'd taught her she could. On Friday afternoon, Diane came to evaluate the property. She walked through slowly, taking notes, asking questions about the lease, the utilities, the inventory. "You could get a good price for this," she said. "Location's excellent. The building needs work, but someone with vision could turn this into something special." "How long?" I asked. "To sell? In this market with the right buyer? 2 months? Maybe 3. "Let's do it." Diane studied me for a moment. "Claire, forgive me for asking, but is everything okay? This feels sudden." I thought about telling her, about Paige, about the money, about the way I'd been living in a shrine to the past. But instead, I just smiled. "Everything's fine," I said. "I'm just ready to move forward." That Sunday, 5 days after Paige had emptied my accounts and disappeared, I was closing the store when my phone finally rang. Paige Mobile. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I answered. Mom. Her voice was high, strained. Mom, I need you to listen. I'm at the airport in Cancun and they won't let me board. My card isn't working, I don't have enough cash for the fees, and Britt and Samara already left, and I don't know what to do. I walked to the front window and looked out at Morrison Street. A couple was walking past, holding hands. The Vietnamese bakery was closing for the night. Stop, I said quietly. What? Stop talking. Silence. Mom, please, I know I messed up, but I'll pay you back, I swear. You took $18,000 from me, Paige. Her breath caught. I know, and I'm so sorry. I just thought... You thought what? That I wouldn't notice? That I'd just let it go? I thought I'd have time to replace it before you needed it, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't think You didn't think at all. Mom, please. That money was for the store, to fix the back wall, to update the electrical. I saved it for a year, every spare dollar. She was crying now. I know, and I'm so sorry. I'll get a job, I'll pay you back every cent. How? I asked. You've never held a job for more than 4 months. You quit the bookstore after 2 weeks because you didn't like the hours. You quit the coffee shop because your manager was mean. How exactly are you going to pay me back $18,000? I don't know, but I will, I promise. Paige. I closed my eyes. I put the store up for sale. The line went dead silent. What? Morrison and daughter, I'm selling it. You can't. Her voice pitched up, panicked. Mom, that's Dad's store, that's our store. It was, until you decided it was your personal piggy bank. No, you don't mean that. You're just upset. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. I could hear her breathing, ragged and fast. In the background, announcements in Spanish, the bustle of an airport. So what? She said finally. You're just leaving me here? You're going to let me be stranded in Mexico? I'm going to let you figure it out. Mom, there's a Western Union on Avenida Tulum. I'll send you $300 tonight. That's enough for a ticket home and a night in a hostel if you can't get a flight right away. $300? That's not even... It's more than you've earned. She made a sound like I'd slapped her. I can't believe you're doing this, she whispered. I can't believe you stole from me, I said. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the phone down on the counter. I stood there for a long time, watching the street grow dark, waiting for the guilt to come crashing down. But it didn't. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Light. I sent the $300 that night through Western Union, sitting at my laptop in the apartment above the store. The confirmation email came through at 11:47 p.m. I stared at it for a long time before closing the computer. Paige didn't call to say thank you. Didn't text. Nothing. For 3 days, I heard nothing at all. On the 4th day, Margaret showed up at the store unannounced, just after the lunch rush. She came in wearing her nurse's scrubs. She worked the day shift at Providence Hospital, and her face was tight with the kind of controlled anger that meant she'd been rehearsing this conversation in her head. We need to talk, she said, not even pretending to browse. I was helping Mrs. Kowalski find a large print edition of Lonesome Dove. I'm with a customer, Marg. It's fine, dear, Mrs. Kowalski said, patting my hand. She was 76, had been coming to the store since Thomas opened it. I can wait. Margaret followed me to the back office. I left the door open, partly because I had customers, partly because I knew what was coming and didn't want to be trapped. Paige called me, Margaret said without preamble. I figured. She's in Cancun, working at a hostel. Do you have any idea what kinds of places those are? What kinds of people? She's 22 years old, Margaret. She's your daughter. I turned to face her. And she stole $18,000 from me and left the country without saying a word. Margaret's expression flickered. Surprise, then defensiveness. She said it was a misunderstanding. That she thought the account was... Don't. I held up a hand. Don't make excuses for her. I've been doing that for 6 years and look where it got us. She lost her father. So did I. My voice came out sharper than I intended. I lost my husband, Margaret. And instead of grieving like a normal person, I spent 6 years trying to make sure Paige never felt pain again. I gave her everything. And you know what she learned? That she could take whatever she wanted and I'd just forgive her. Margaret crossed her arms. So you're punishing her. I'm letting her grow up. By abandoning her in a foreign country? I sent her money to get home. She chose to stay. $300, Margaret said. Claire, that's barely enough for... It's more than she earned. I picked up a stack of invoices from the desk, needing something to do with my hands. And you know what? Maybe struggling for a few weeks will teach her something I never could. My sister stared at me like I'd grown a second head. We'd never fought much growing up. She was 8 years older, more like a second mother than a sibling. But I could see the judgment in her eyes now. This isn't you, she said finally. You're not cruel, Claire. No, I agreed. I'm not, but I'm done being a doormat. She left without buying anything. The bell above the door chimed like an accusation. Mrs. Kowalski came to the counter 20 minutes later with her book. Everything all right, dear? Just family stuff, I said, forcing a smile. She studied me with those sharp blue eyes. My daughter and I didn't speak for 2 years once, she said. Stupid argument about her wedding. I wanted to be right more than I wanted to be close. Worst 2 years of my life. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. But sometimes, she added, the people we love need to fall down before they learn to walk right. Just make sure you'll be there when she's ready to get up. After she left, I stood at the counter and wondered if I would be. If I even knew how to be there anymore without enabling her. Diane called on Friday with news. I've got someone interested in the property, commercial developer. He wants to see it Monday. That was fast. Prime location, Claire. These days, small retail spaces in walkable neighborhoods are gold. She paused. He's talking cash offer, probably above asking, but he'd want to move quickly, closing in 30 days if possible. 30 days. I looked around the store, at the shelves Thomas had built, at the cafe tables where regulars gathered every morning, at the children's corner where Paige used to read for hours. Set up the meeting, I said. You sure? I wasn't, but I said yes anyway. That Sunday, I went to Mass at St. Michael's. I'd been going more regularly since Thomas died. Not because I'd found faith exactly, but because the ritual was soothing. The standing and sitting and kneeling, the familiar prayers, the smell of incense. It was one of the few places where I didn't have to pretend to be okay. Father Dominic gave the homily. He was in his 60s, gray-haired, with a quiet intensity that reminded me of Thomas. The reading was from Luke, the prodigal son. We often focus on the son who left, Father Dominic said, his voice echoing in the vaulted space. The one who squandered everything and came crawling back. But I want us to think about the father. He saw his son coming from far off. He ran to meet him. He didn't wait for an apology. He didn't make him grovel. He just ran. I felt something tighten in my chest. But here's what we miss, he continued. The father's forgiveness didn't erase the consequences. The son had still lost everything. He'd still lived with pigs. He'd still felt hunger and shame. The father's love didn't undo the suffering. It welcomed him home despite it. And maybe that's the harder kind of love. The kind that lets someone fall but promises to be there when they're ready to rise. After Mass, I lit a candle. I didn't pray for Paige to come home, or for her to be safe. I just stood there in the flickering light and asked for the strength to know the difference between love and rescue. When I got back to the apartment, I had 4 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. Mexican area code. I almost didn't call back. But something, maybe Father Dominic's voice still in my head, made me dial. Hello? A man's voice, American accent, tired. Someone called me from this number? Yeah, hi. My name's Evan. I'm the manager at Casa Verde Hostel in Cancun. Are you Claire Donovan? My stomach dropped. Yes. Is Paige? She's fine. She's here. Working front desk and cleaning rooms to cover her bed and save for a ticket home. He sighed. Look, I'm not supposed to get involved, but she's a good kid. Works hard. Doesn't complain. But I can tell she's barely holding it together. Then why are you calling me? I asked, hating how cold I sounded. Because she won't call you. Too proud, I think? Or too ashamed? He paused. She talks about you sometimes. About your bookstore. About her dad. She's carrying a lot, Mrs. Donovan. She stole from me, I said quietly. I know. She told me. Another pause. I'm not saying what she did was okay. I'm just saying, she knows. And she's trying to make it right the only way she knows how. After we hung up, I sat on the couch and cried for the first time since this whole thing started. Not because I missed Paige, though I did, desperately, but because I didn't know how to bridge the gap between us anymore. Didn't know if I should. The developer came on Monday. His name was Marcus Chen, mid-40s, sharp suit, expensive watch. He walked through the store with Diane, taking measurements, nodding, making notes on his phone. "Great bones," he said. "I'm thinking upscale cafe bar hybrid. Keep some of the original fixtures for character, but gut most of it. Open floor plan, natural light." I felt sick. "The bookshelves?" I asked. "We'd have to remove them, but I'd be happy to donate them to a school or library if you'd like." Thomas's bookshelves, the ones he'd built with his own hands, measuring twice, cutting once, teaching Paige the names of the tools. "When would you need an answer?" I asked. "I've got another property I'm looking at in Southeast," Marcus said. "But this is my first choice. If you can commit by end of week, I'll go $20,000 over asking. $20,000. After they left, I locked the door and sat in Thomas's chair in the back office. I pulled out one of his annotated books, The Road by Cormac McCarthy, and opened it at random. "You have to carry the fire," Thomas had underlined. In the margin, he'd written, "What we pass on matters more than what we keep." I closed the book. That night, Paige finally called. I almost didn't answer. My thumb hovered over the red button, but at the last second, I swiped green. "Mom." Her voice was small, different. "I know you probably don't want to talk to me. Then why are you calling?" A long silence. I could hear music in the background, voices speaking Spanish. "Evan said he called you," she said finally. "He did. I didn't ask him to. I need you to know that." "Okay." Another silence then. "I'm sorry." I waited. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't have an excuse. I saw the money and I wanted to do something, to feel something. And I didn't think about you, or the store, or anything. I just wanted to not be sad for 5 fucking minutes." I closed my eyes. "Paige? No, let me finish." Her voice was shaking. "I've been selfish. For years. Since Dad died. And you let me be because you were trying to make up for him being gone. And I took advantage of that. I took everything you gave me and I never said thank you. I never grew up." I didn't say anything. Couldn't. "I'm working here," she continued. "At this hostel. It's not glamorous. I clean toilets and change sheets and deal with drunk backpackers. But I'm saving money. Every peso. And when I have enough, I'm coming home and I'm going to pay you back. Every cent. Even if it takes me years." "Paige?" "And I know about the store. Margaret told me, and I get it. I do. I destroyed something you loved because I was careless, and you have every right to start over." I opened my mouth to respond, but she kept going. "But Mom, please don't sell it. Not yet. Let me come home and help you fix it. Let me prove that I can be the person Dad wanted me to be. Your father wanted you to be responsible," I said quietly. "To think about other people. To understand that actions have consequences." "I know." She was crying now. "I know, and I'm learning. I'm trying." "Are you?" I asked. "Or are you just scared?" She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was barely a whisper. "Both." I stood up and walked to the window. The street was dark except for the glow of the bakery's neon sign. "I'm proud of you for working," I said. "For not running to someone else to fix this. That's growth, Paige. That's what I've been waiting for." "So you'll wait? Before selling?" I thought about Marcus Chen's offer, about Father Dominic's homily, about Thomas's note in the margin. What we pass on matters more than what we keep. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I need time to think." "Okay." She sounded defeated. "I understand." "Paige?" "Yeah? I love you. That hasn't changed. But love doesn't mean I'm going to save you from yourself anymore." "I know." A pause. "I love you too, Mom." After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. On Wednesday, I called Diane. "I need more time," I said, "before I commit to Marcus's offer." "How much time?" 30 days. She sighed. "Claire, he's not going to wait that long. He's got another property." "Then he can take the other property," I said. "I'm not ready." "Okay." She didn't sound happy. "I'll let him know, but if you change your mind, I'll call you." That Sunday, Father Dominic found me after Mass in the courtyard where I was standing with my coffee, watching the rain start to fall. "Haven't seen you in a while," he said. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I'm trying to figure out how to forgive someone without enabling them." He nodded slowly. "That's the work, isn't it? The real work. Not the easy forgiveness that costs nothing, but the kind that requires boundaries. That says, I love you and I'm not going to participate in your destruction." "What if she never changes?" I asked. Then you'll have done what you could, and you'll grieve what you lost, but you won't have lost yourself in the process. I thought about that all the way home. 2 weeks later, Paige called again. I have enough for a ticket, she said. I'm coming home Friday. My heart lurched. Okay. I'm scared, she admitted. I don't know what happens next, if you'll even want to see me. I want to see you, I said. And I realized it was true. We have a lot to talk about, but I want to see you. The store is still here, for now. We'll figure the rest out when you get here. She let out a shaky breath. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, I said. We have a long road ahead of us, Paige, and it's not going to be easy. I know. Good. Then we'll start there. On Friday morning, I woke before dawn and couldn't fall back asleep. I made coffee, showered, put on the blue dress Thomas always said made my eyes look brighter. I didn't know why I cared what I looked like. Maybe because I wanted Paige to see that I wasn't broken, that I'd survived her absence. Her flight landed at 2 p.m. I got to PDX early and stood in the arrivals hall, watching travelers reunite with their families. A little girl ran to her grandfather. A young couple kissed. A businesswoman was greeted by a driver holding a sign. And then I saw her. Paige came through the sliding doors looking nothing like the girl in those Tulum photos. She was thinner, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing jeans and a faded t-shirt. She had a small backpack over one shoulder. When she saw me, she stopped walking. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the crowded terminal. Then she started toward me, slowly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed. When she got close enough, she set down her backpack. "Hi, Mom," she said. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked exhausted. I didn't hug her right away, didn't rush forward like the father in the parable. Instead, I looked at her, really looked at her, and said, "Welcome home." She burst into tears. And finally, I opened my arms. We drove back to Portland in near silence. Paige stared out the window at the familiar highway, the trees, the gray sky. I kept my hands on the wheel and my eyes on the road. "The store looks the same," she said when we pulled up to Morrison Street. "Did you think I'd burn it down out of spite?" She almost smiled. "I wouldn't have blamed you." Inside, I made tea while Paige sat at one of the cafe tables. It felt strange being in the store with her like this, like we were strangers meeting for the first time, trying to figure out the rules. "I have something for you," she said after a while. She pulled out an envelope from her backpack and slid it across the table. Inside was $847 in cash. Wrinkled bills, small denominations. "It's not much," she said, "but it's everything I saved. I'll get a job. I'll pay you the rest." I stared at the money. $847 out of $18,000. But it was $847 she'd earned by scrubbing toilets and checking in drunk tourists. $847 she could have spent on herself but didn't. "Thank you," I said quietly. "I'm going to make this right," she said. "I don't know how yet, but I will." "I believe you want to," I said. "But wanting isn't enough, Paige. You're going to have to show me." She nodded. "I know." We sat there for a long time, drinking tea, not talking. Outside, the rain started up again, tapping against the windows. Finally, Paige spoke. "Why didn't you sell it? The store?" "Margaret said you had an offer." I looked around at Thomas's shelves, at the life we'd built here. "Because I realized something," I said. "I was going to sell it to punish you, and that's not who I want to be. If I sell it, it'll be because I'm ready to let go, not because I'm angry. Are you? Ready?" "I don't know yet," I admitted. "Ask me in 6 months." Paige's eyes filled with tears again. "I don't deserve you." "You're right," I said. "You don't. But neither did I deserve your father, and he loved me anyway. That's the thing about grace, Paige. It's not about deserving. It's about choosing. Are you choosing me?" I reached across the table and took her hand. It was rougher than I remembered. Calloused. The hands of someone who'd worked. "I'm choosing us," I said. "But that means you have to choose too. To be better. To be honest. To show up." "I will," she whispered. "I promise." "Then we'll start there." That night, after Paige fell asleep in her old room above the store, I sat in Thomas's chair and opened East of Eden one more time. Tim Shell, he'd written, "Thou mayest, not thou must, not thou will, thou mayest. The choice to be good, the choice to rise, the choice to carry the fire forward." I didn't know yet if Paige would make the right choices, if we'd rebuild what was broken or if we'd have to start from scratch with something entirely new. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. And maybe that was enough. For now. The first week after Paige came home felt like learning to walk on a broken ankle. Painful, unsteady, uncertain if the bone would ever truly heal. She slept late the first 2 days, her body still catching up from weeks of exhaustion. I didn't wake her, didn't hover. I just went about my routine, opening the store at 7:30, brewing coffee, helping customers, organizing the returns, pretending everything was normal when nothing felt normal at all. On the third day, she came downstairs at noon wearing one of Thomas's old Portland State sweatshirts and stood awkwardly in the doorway between the apartment and the shop. "I can help," she said, "if you want." I was shelving returns in the literature section. "You remember how?" "I worked here for 2 weeks, Mom. I think I can manage alphabetical order." There was a sharpness in her voice, defensive, self-protective. I recognized it because I'd heard it 1,000 times before. The old Paige would have turned it into an argument, stormed off, proved me right about her unreliability. But this Paige just picked up a stack of books and started shelving. We worked side by side in silence for an hour. She made mistakes. Put Faulkner in with Fitzgerald. Mixed up the Bronte sisters. But she fixed them when I pointed them out without complaint. When Mrs. Kowalski came in for her weekly visit, Paige greeted her with genuine warmth. "My goodness, Paige, you're back." Mrs. Kowalski pulled her into a hug. "Your mother missed you terribly." I saw Paige's eyes flick to me, uncertain. I didn't confirm or deny, just kept shelving. After Mrs. Kowalski left with a copy of All the Light We Cannot See, Paige turned to me. "Did you?" she asked quietly. "Miss me?" I set down the book I was holding and looked at her directly. "Every single day. But missing you and enabling you are two different things." She nodded slowly. "I'm trying to understand the difference." "So am I admitted. That Sunday, Paige asked if she could come to Mass with me. I was surprised. She hadn't been to church since Thomas's funeral, had spent her teenage years rolling her eyes whenever I mentioned St. Michael's. But I said yes. We sat in the same pew I always chose, near the back. Father Dominic's homily was about the woman at the well, the one who'd had 5 husbands, who came to draw water at noon to avoid judgment, who Jesus met anyway and offered living water. She didn't have to clean herself up first, Father Dominic said. She didn't have to prove she'd changed. He just met her where she was, and in being seen, truly seen, she was transformed. After Mass, Paige lit a candle. I watched her stand there, head bowed, lips moving silently. When she came back, her eyes were wet. "I asked Dad to help me not screw this up," she said as we walked to the car. Something twisted in my chest. "He would have been proud of you for trying." Would he? I thought about Thomas, his patience, his faith in second chances, his belief that people could change if they wanted to badly enough. "Yes," I said, "he would." On Monday morning, Paige came downstairs at 7 a.m. wearing jeans and a clean shirt, her hair pulled back. "I need to find a job," she said. "Today." We spent the morning making a list of places that might be hiring: coffee shops, restaurants, retail. She took the bus downtown while I minded the store. And when she came back at 4 p.m., she had 2 applications filled out and an interview scheduled at a cafe near Powell's City of Books for Wednesday. "They said they need someone who can work mornings," she said, spreading the papers on the counter. 6 a.m. start. I told them I could do it. "Can you?" She met my eyes. "I'm going to." The interview went well. By Friday, she had the job. Barista at Common Grounds Coffee, 5 shifts a week, minimum wage plus tips. Her first day was Monday. I watched her set her alarm that Sunday night, watched her lay out her clothes, watched her go to bed at 9 p.m. like she was preparing for something sacred. When her alarm went off at 4:45 the next morning, I heard her shut it off immediately. Heard the shower start. Heard her moving around the apartment with quiet purpose. She left at 5:30 before I'd even started the coffee in the store. When she came home at 2 p.m., exhausted and smelling like espresso, she handed me a $20 bill. "Tips from today," she said, "for the debt." It was such a small amount. Laughable, really, in the face of $18,000. But I took it anyway. The second week was harder. Paige woke up at 4:45 every morning, worked until 2, then came to help at the bookstore until closing. By Thursday, I could see the exhaustion creeping in. Dark circles under her eyes, a slowness in her movements, a brittleness in her voice. "You don't have to work at the store every day," I told her. "You can take a day off." "I'm fine," she snapped. Paige, I said I'm fine. But she wasn't fine. On Friday, she spilled coffee on a customer's white coat at Common Grounds and had to give them a $50 store credit. That night, she counted out her tips, barely enough to cover the loss, and sat at the kitchen table crying quietly. I wanted to comfort her, wanted to tell her it was okay. These things happened. She was doing great. But I remembered Father Dominic's words, love that lets someone fall but promises to be there when they're ready to rise. So I just sat with her. Didn't say anything. Just sat. Finally, she wiped her eyes. This is harder than I thought it would be. What is? Growing up. I almost smiled. Yeah, it usually is. The third week, Margaret came back. She showed up on a Saturday afternoon when the store was busy. I was helping a customer find a birthday gift for his daughter when I saw her browsing the fiction section with too much focus, obviously waiting. When the customer left, she approached the counter. I owe you an apology, she said without preamble. I crossed my arms. Okay. I shouldn't have judged you for how you handled things with Paige. You were right. I was making excuses for her. Because you love her, I said. I get it. Because I was scared, Margaret corrected. After Thomas died, I thought if I could keep you and Paige from falling apart, then maybe his death wouldn't have broken everything. But I was wrong. You can't protect people from consequences. You can only love them through them. I felt my throat tighten. When did you figure that out? Last Tuesday, when Paige came to the hospital to bring me lunch on her break. She looked exhausted, Claire. But she also looked proud, like she'd earned something. And I realized that's what you'd been trying to give her all along. We stood there for a moment, the shop quiet around us. I'm sorry I called you cruel, Margaret said. I'm sorry I hung up on you. She hugged me then, quick and fierce. When she pulled back, she was smiling. So, how's it going? Really? I don't know yet, I admitted. Some days are good. Some days I want to strangle her. Most days I'm just tired. That sounds like parenting. I thought I was done with this part. Margaret laughed. Oh, honey, you're never done. At the end of the third week, Phil Ramsey called. Claire, I hate to bother you, but I've got a window in my schedule next month. If you still want to do that back wall repair, I could start May 15th. I looked around the store, at the water damage I'd learned to ignore, at the exposed wiring that technically violated code, at all the things I'd been putting off because I didn't know if there'd be a store to fix. How much? I asked. For materials and labor, $18,000 give or take. The same amount Paige had taken. The universe apparently had a sense of irony. I'll let you know by the end of the week, I said. That night, I sat down with my finances. Between Paige's contributions, she was up to $360 now, and what I'd managed to save again, I had about $7,000. Not nearly enough. I could take a loan. I could ask Margaret to help. I could sell some of Thomas's rare first editions that I'd been saving. Or I could wait. Wait for Paige to prove she was serious. Wait to see if this change was real or just temporary guilt. Wait to know if investing in the store meant investing in a future I actually wanted. I didn't decide that night, or the next. But on Sunday after Mass, Father Dominic found me in the courtyard again. You look troubled, he said. I told him about Phil's offer, about the money, about not knowing whether to fix what was broken or let it stay broken until I was sure it was worth saving. Are we still talking about the store? He asked gently. I laughed despite myself. Probably not. Can I tell you something? He sat down on the bench beside me. When I was ordained, my father didn't speak to me for 3 years. Thought I was throwing my life away. And for those 3 years, I grieved him like he was dead. But I also built a life that was mine. Not the one he wanted for me. Mine. What happened after 3 years? He called. Said he'd been wrong. Said he wanted to know me. Really know me. Not just the idea of me he'd been holding on to. Father Dominic smiled. And because I'd done the work to become myself, I could let him in without losing what I'd built. So you're saying I should wait? I'm saying you should do whatever lets you sleep at night, but don't make decisions out of fear. Fear that she'll fail. Fear that she'll succeed. Make them from the place in you that knows who you are, with or without her. The fourth week, something shifted. Paige came home from Common Grounds, and instead of going straight to the bookstore, she went upstairs. When she came back down an hour later, she had a notebook. What's that? I asked. A business plan, she said. Kind of. I was thinking, what if we expanded the cafe section? Added more tables, real food, maybe partnered with the Vietnamese bakery next door to do pastries in the morning. The store's always been about more than books. It's about community. We should lean into that. I stared at her. You made a business plan? I mean, it's rough. But one of the regulars at Common Grounds is a small business consultant, and I was telling her about the store, and she gave me some ideas. Paige opened the notebook, suddenly shy. I know I have no right to have opinions about this place after what I did, but I was thinking, if you decide to keep it, maybe I could help. Really help, not just shelving. I took the notebook. Inside were pages of handwritten notes, customer demographics, revenue ideas, partnership proposals, marketing strategies. It was messy and enthusiastic and deeply earnest. This is good work, Paige. Yeah? Really good. I looked up at her. When did you do this? At night. After my shifts. I couldn't sleep anyway, so... She shrugged. I wanted to show you I'm serious. About the store. About us. Something cracked open in my chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something close. Something like belief. Thank you, I said. That night, I called Phil Ramsey. I want to do the repair, I said, but I need to pay in installments. Can you work with me? For you, Claire? Absolutely. We'll figure it out. The 5th week brought the first real test. Paige's former friends from college, the ones she'd gone to Tulum with, showed up at the store on a Saturday afternoon. Britt, Samara, and Kennedy, dressed in expensive athleisure, carrying iced lattes from the place 3 blocks over that charged $7 a cup. Oh my God, Paige! Britt squealed. We heard you were back. We've been texting you. I lost my phone in Mexico, Paige said flatly. Haven't replaced it yet. That was a lie. I knew it was a lie. She had a phone, a cheap prepaid one she'd bought with her own money. She just hadn't given them the number. Well, we're going to this rooftop thing tonight in the Pearl District, Kennedy said. You should totally come. It'll be like old times. I watched Paige's face carefully, watched the longing there, the desire to be included, to be young and careless again. Watched her glance at me, then at the register where she'd been working, then back at her friends. I can't, she said. I have to close the store. Paige, it's Saturday night. Live a little. I am living, Paige said quietly. This is my life now. Britt's smile faltered. Okay, well, text us if you change your mind. They left in a cloud of expensive perfume and confusion. After they were gone, Paige stood at the counter staring at nothing. You could have gone, I said. No, I couldn't. Paige. Mom. She turned to me and her eyes were fierce. Those girls are the reason I stole from you. Not because they made me. They didn't even know about the money. But because I wanted to be like them. Wanted to not think about consequences or responsibilities or anything real. And look where it got me. They're your friends. They're people I partied with, she corrected. There's a difference. I'm starting to learn that. I felt something like pride bloom in my chest. That's very mature of you. Yeah, well, she picked up a stack of books to shelve. Maturity sucks, but apparently it's non-negotiable now. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. The 6th week, we had the fight I'd been dreading. It started small. Paige was late to her shift at the bookstore because her bus had broken down. I'd had to handle the afternoon rush alone, and by the time she arrived, 45 minutes late, flustered and apologetic, I was exhausted and irritable. You could have called, I said. My phone died. You could have borrowed someone's phone. I'm sorry, okay? It wasn't my fault. I'm not saying it was your fault. I'm saying you could have communicated. She slammed her bag down on the counter. I'm doing the best I can, Mom. I'm working 2 jobs, trying to pay you back, trying to prove myself, and it's never enough for you. That's not fair. Isn't it? You're waiting for me to screw up. I can feel it. You don't trust me. Can you blame me? The words came out harsher than I intended. You stole from me, Paige. You left me with nothing. Trust isn't automatic. It's earned. I'm trying to earn it. I know you are. But it takes time. How much time? Her voice broke. How long until you stop looking at me like I'm going to ruin everything again? I didn't have an answer. She grabbed her bag and went upstairs. I heard the apartment door slam. I stood there in the empty store, shaking, wondering if I'd just destroyed the fragile thing we'd been building. That night, neither of us spoke. We moved around the apartment like ghosts, careful not to touch, not to look at each other too long. At midnight, I heard her door open, heard her footsteps in the hallway, then a soft knock on my bedroom door. Mom? Come in. She stood in the doorway in her pajamas, backlit by the hall light. "I'm sorry I yelled," she said. "I'm sorry too. You were right. About the phone. I should have found a way to call. And you were right too," I admitted. "I am waiting for you to fail. Not because I want you to, but because I'm scared. Scared that if I trust you too soon, you'll hurt me again. And I don't know if I can survive that." Paige's face crumpled. She came and sat on the edge of my bed, and suddenly she wasn't 22 anymore. She was 6 years old, crying because she'd had a nightmare. "I don't want to hurt you," she whispered. "I don't want to be that person anymore." "Then don't be," I said. "But understand that changing isn't a one-time thing. It's a choice you make every single day. And some days, you'll fail. And that's okay, as long as you keep choosing. What if I'm not strong enough?" I thought about the parables Father Dominic had preached, about the prodigal son, the woman at the well, the thief on the cross. All the people who'd been given second chances not because they deserved them, but because grace doesn't work that way. "You are," I said. "You're stronger than you think. You just have to believe it." She crawled into bed next to me like she used to when she was little, and I held her while she cried. Held her and thought about all the ways love could break you, and all the ways it could put you back together. The 7th week, Phil started the repairs. The back wall came down to reveal worse damage than we'd thought. Rot that extended into the foundation, wiring that was actively dangerous. Phil stood in the rubble, shaking his head. "This is going to cost more than I quoted," he said. "Maybe 26,000 total." I felt the number like a punch to the gut. How much more time are we talking? To do it right? 2 months? Maybe 3? I looked at Paige, who was standing in the doorway with coffee for the crew. Her face was stricken. "It's my fault," she said after Phil walked away. "If I hadn't taken that money, you could have fixed this a year ago before it got this bad." "It's not your fault the building is old," I said. "But it's my fault you're in debt now." I couldn't argue with that. That night, I did something I hadn't done since Thomas died. I called my sister and asked for help. Margaret came over with her checkbook and a bottle of wine. "How much do you need?" she asked. 8,000. I can handle the rest with installments." She wrote the check without hesitation. "Consider it an investment. In the store. In you. Margaret. Claire, you've been doing this alone for 6 years. Let someone help you for once." I took the check, feeling the weight of it. Not just the money, but the gift of being seen, being supported, being allowed to need something. "Thank you," I said. "Thank you for not giving up," she replied. "On the store, on Paige, on yourself." By the 8th week, we'd fallen into a rhythm. Paige worked mornings at Common Grounds, afternoons at the bookstore. She brought home her tips every week, now up to $940 total, and put them in an envelope we kept in the register. We had dinner together most nights, simple things, pasta, soup, sandwiches, and talked about the customers, the books, the small dramas of daily life. Some nights we talked about Thomas, about the good memories, the hard ones, the way grief had twisted us both into people we didn't recognize. I thought if I was happy enough, loud enough, busy enough, I wouldn't miss him, Paige admitted one night over spaghetti. But it didn't work. I just got really good at pretending. "Me too," I said. I thought if I kept everything exactly the same, the store, the apartment, our routines, he wouldn't really be gone. But he was. And I was just living in a museum. "Are we still?" she asked. "Living in a museum?" I looked around the kitchen, at the new calendar on the wall, at the different dish soap we'd started using, at the way Paige had rearranged the pantry to make more sense. "No," I said. "I think we're starting to live in a home again." On Sunday of the 9th week, Father Dominic called me into his office after Mass. "I have a proposition for you," he said. "The parish is starting a young adult ministry. We need someone to lead a discussion group on Tuesday nights. Books, faith, questions. I immediately thought of you. I'm not qualified to teach theology, Father. I'm not asking you to teach theology. I'm asking you to create space for people to ask questions, to doubt, to struggle. You do that every day in your store." I thought about it, about having something that was mine, separate from Paige, separate from the store's history. "I'll think about it," I said. "Good." He smiled. "We're starting in 3 weeks. Let me know." When I told Paige about it that afternoon, she surprised me. "You should do it," she said. "You're good with people, and you need something that's yours." "The store is mine. The store is ours," she corrected gently. "Or it's starting to be." But you need something just for you. Something that reminds you who you are outside of being my mom or dad's widow or the bookstore lady. It was the most insightful thing she'd said in years. When did you get so wise? I asked. She grinned. I've been reading a lot. Turns out working in a bookstore has some benefits. The 10th week brought closure of a kind I hadn't expected. Diane Hoffner called. Marcus Chen reached out again. He's still interested in the property. Wants to know if you've reconsidered. Tell him it's not for sale, I said. You sure? He's offering even more now. I'm sure. After I hung up, I found Paige in the back, unpacking a box of new arrivals. I turned down the offer, I said. For the store. She looked up, eyes wide. Really? Really, this place is ours. We're keeping it. She set down the book she was holding and crossed the room in 3 steps, pulling me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. Thank you, she whispered into my shoulder. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for giving me a reason not to, I said. The 11th week, Paige got promoted to shift supervisor at Common Grounds. It came with a raise, not much, but enough that she could start paying me back $100 a week instead of $50. At this rate, I'll have you paid back in. She did the math. 3.5 years. I'm not going anywhere, I said. She smiled. Good, neither am I. That Sunday, she lit a candle at St. Michael's for Thomas. I watched her stand there, lips moving in prayer, and I thought about how much she'd changed in 3 months. How much we'd both changed. We weren't fixed. We probably never would be completely, but we were healing, and sometimes that's enough. On a Tuesday night in late July, I taught my first young adult discussion group. 15 people showed up, more than Father Dominic expected. We talked about the brothers Karamazov, about suffering and faith and doubt and redemption. A girl about Paige's age asked, "How do you believe in a good God when terrible things happen?" I thought about Thomas's death, about Paige's betrayal, about all the ways life breaks us. I don't think faith is about having all the answers, I said slowly. I think it's about showing up anyway, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. It's about choosing to believe that grace is possible, even when you can't see it yet. After the session, the girl came up to me. That helped, she said. More than you know. Walking home through the warm summer evening, I thought about grace, about second chances, about how sometimes the hardest thing to do is forgive, not just others, but yourself. The 12th week marked 3 months since Paige had come home. We celebrated with dinner at the Vietnamese bakery next door, our new tradition. Over spring rolls and po, Paige handed me an envelope. What's this? Just open it. Inside was $1,200 in cash and a handwritten note. 3 months down, 33 to go. Thank you for believing I could do this. Love, Paige. I looked up at her, tears blurring my vision. I'm so proud of you, I said. I'm proud of me too, she admitted. I didn't think I could do it, but I'm doing it. Yes, you are. We clinked our water glasses together, and I thought about Father Dominic's homily from months ago, about the father who ran to meet his son, about the grace that doesn't wait for perfection, but celebrates the first steps home. We weren't perfect. Our relationship would always carry scars from what had happened, but we were here. We were trying. We were choosing each other every single day. And in the end, maybe that's what love really is. Not the absence of pain, but the choice to stay anyway. That night, I sat in Thomas's chair in the back office and opened East of Eden one last time. Timshel, he'd written, thou mayest. I picked up a pen and added my own note in the margin, and we did. My daughter emptied my accounts and traveled with her friends. 5 days later, she called me desperate when she found out what I would do.